Good boy. Get that intro. No. Go back. Get the intro. Get it. There it is. Get that, good boy. There's the intro. There it is. All right. So to date, this is how the Supra arrived. Engine was a little grimy. Turbo is way too big. Wiring's a nightmare. A lot of the accessories are just dingy and dungy, and I don't know if dungy's a word. Tony Dungy's a person. But anyway, I got this engine yanked out. That was the first thing to do. If you've been following along, just skip ahead. But for the time being, if we have any new subscribers, which I don't know why we would, but if we do, so far this is where we're at. Got the engine out, got the engine bay cleaned up. I actually had a dustless blasting company come out and blast the engine bay for me to get it ready for paint. This made life a million times easier. Price is not bad either. When you count how long it'll take you to physically do it, it's a nightmare versus having someone come out and do it. But I got the engine refreshed, CP piston, Crower rod combo, ported and polished head, bunch of good giblets. I guess you could call them giblets. Is that the right way to, I guess giblets is a word. And then I got the engine back in. This is all in the manner of the last 25, 26 days. And this is how it sits right now, which is pretty sick. A lot of work, but we are trucking along. Last time you guys saw this car, the engine bay was getting painted, and then the engine went in. Now I got a bunch of the accessories bolted up to it. I got new CSF radiator that's all masking taped off because I'm a big dumb animal and I don't want to jack it up. But I have to start the wiring phase of this. I do not have a plug and play harness. This thing, again, it had a stock ECU with Pro EFI on it, which utilizes the factory harness. The factory harness, if you want to see it again. How many lids do you guys have at home? I have like 1,000 of these lids, and I don't even know where all the buckets went. But, man, in a moving blanket, it's like one of them Russian nesting dolls. Okay, so this is the wiring that was in the car before. Down to underneath this is the factory, like the factory harness somewhere buried under there. And it, again, it had a Pro EFI on it, but going back with the Haltech R3, and I kind of want to run through the parts that I'm using, why I'm using them, and what's going to make this easy or hard for the average DIYer at home. The hard part is actually simple. It's just wiring. I mean, having to manually wire it, but we'll go through that stuff one step at a time. All right, so in the past, I have largely used Nexus R5 ECUs. This is a Nexus R3 ECU. So let's get this sucker cut open, and I'll show you why I went with the R3 instead of the R5. I have a list here because anyone on YouTube that acts like they know all this stuff off the cuff, they're liars. The ECU is nice and compact. You still have two main plugs. This is your 25 amp output, internal map sensor, antenna, and then your tuning port. But again, a nice compact ECU. You have your status lights for your 25 amp outputs, and then power, check engine, Wi-Fi, data log, all that stuff's there. Main power connections are up there. Now, there's a reason I went with the R3 instead of the R5, but that also includes me talking about the UC10 digital dash. So, UC10 digital dash. This is going to be apples to apples in terms of comparison to everybody. So, UC10 digital dash. This thing is sick. I put one of these in the last project, and they're awesome. Like, I always was like, man, I don't need that big of a dash, but I'm telling you, it's worth the extra cash for the UC10 versus the IC7. Not hating on the IC7, but the UC10 is just, it's sick. So why did I decide to do an R3 and a UC10 this go around instead of an R5 and a UC10? It's an easy solution and, easy explanation. And it all comes down to available inputs and outputs and what I'm using this specific car for. You have to remember, pair your ECU with whatever the vehicle is going to be used for. This is just going to be a fun street car. This isn't going to go out and set any records. It's not going to be a drag and drive car that needs to have a million different inputs in it. It's just going to be an all-around fun street car, and it needs a good ECU to match the power that it's going to make. Do this one at a time. R3 versus R5. Injector outputs, 8 on the R3, 18 on the R5. I don't need 18 injector outputs for that car. Ignition outputs, 8 on the R3, 12 on the R5. I don't need 12 ignition outputs on that car. Digitally pulsed outputs, boost control, so on and so forth, 6 on the R3, 8 on the R5. Half bridge outputs, 6 on the R3, 4 on the R5. Have high current outputs, 25 amp. So they use these for like fuel pump, radiator fan, coil packs, injectors, 4 on each. They both have 4. The same exact amount on both of those. Map sensor. This is where the R3 shines in comparison because it has an internal 4-bar and the R5 does not have a map sensor. So you save a couple $100 on a good map sensor right there. AVIs. So any input you have as far as sensor goes. So fuel pressure, oil temp, so on and so forth. There's 11 on the R3, 23 on the R5. There's no doubt the R5 crushes the AVI game compared to the R3. And you could tell it has 2 connectors versus 1 million on the R5. SPIs, so your speed inputs, drive shaft speed, front wheel speed. You use an SPI for flex fuel sensors, 6 on the R3, 10 on the R5. No big deal there. I don't need a ton of SPIs. Wideband, onboard wideband. There is 1 in the R3, 2 on the R5. The reason I only need 1, I'm just doing single turbo. I'll have 1 wideband in the downpipe. That's all I need. 2 on the R5 is nice if you're doing bank-to-bank reference, something like that. Both of these ECUs, the R3 and the R5, you can run a Haltech wideband controller with it to run extra. You could run 8 widebands on that thing if you really wanted to. I don't know why you'd need 8 on a 6-cylinder. But anyway, totally expandable if you need it. 1 on the R3, 2 on the R5. Now, the nitty-gritty, cost, right? Before I get to cost, let's talk about the UC10 dash. Keep all this in mind for your needs, right? R3 versus R5. Don't worry about that stuff down there. But you can go on Haltech's website, their ECU guide, and there's a comparison of this stuff. But let's talk UC10 real quick. UC10. So again, I already popped this thing out of the box. But the reason that I bring the UC10 into the conversation is actually fairly simple. The UC10 is connected to your Haltech ECU with just a single CAN cable to the ECU. It just runs on the CAN system, and the UC10 can actually feed information to the ECU itself. Now, anything critical, mission critical, obviously I don't want to run anything through a box to another box, but if I need extra inputs to look at data logs after the fact, the UC10 is an expander. The UC10 has 10 AVIs, it's got 4 digitally pulsed outputs, and it's got 4 SPIs, okay? So this alone can add expandability to your ECU. Now, the golden question is cost, right? So an R3 and a UC10 versus an R5. And I should mention, the pricing I'm considering includes an 8-foot wire-in harness. So it includes you getting their harness with your ECU, which is a wire-in harness. You wire it all in yourself, this is what I will be using to wire that engine up, right? So keep that in mind. That comes with it. So UC10, it adds 10 inputs, 4 DPOs, 4 SPIs. That brings your DPIs from 6 to 10 versus the 8. It brings your AVIs from 11 to 21 versus the 23. And it brings your SPIs from 6 to 10, matching the R5. So R3, UC10, cost. The total cost for an R3 and a UC10 is $47.94 retail. Just the R5 and the harness is $48.74. So for the price of the ECU, the wire harness, and the dash, you come in about $100 less than, 80 and change less than an R5 ECU and harness. So to me, it's a no-brainer. For this car and what I'm doing with it, that is the absolute best case scenario, because spending the same amount of money and then still having to buy a dash, I'm not about it. So that is why I chose the R3. That's why it's getting a UC10, and I think you guys are gonna love it when it's installed, especially because Mako Motorsports, they make these bolt-in dash mounts, and I've used them a ton in the past, and this will bolt right in place of the factory dash. It'll look clean, it'll look nice, everything will be, the fit and finish of it will look great when it's all said and done. So Haltech R3 plus harness, that's the way to go on this project. An R5 shines in so many ways, and I'm not sure, I put R5s in so many cars. I love an R5, but for this purpose, R3 is the winner. Another thing, you guys get to find out in real time if I made a mistake. So I wanted a good solution to mounting the ECU itself. And there's a couple companies that make ECU mounts, the price of which is just kind of extraordinary. This one comes with airheads, so that's pretty dope. This is from ECU Master. What did it cost? I can't even remember. I want to say 150-ish bucks, something like that. But the reason I went with this one was cost, 100%, I'm not gonna lie. It's cheaper. And this is made to bolt into the passenger side footwell, I believe. Again, I haven't even tested it. This is the first time I've opened it. So let's see if this was a worthy purchase. Let's see. There it goes. I'm assuming it comes up in here. It bolts to the factory location. It may take some finagling, but that's the idea of where that thing mounts. And the reason I went with this one, again, I'm not even gonna mince words. It's just, it was cheaper. And honestly, I don't know how much better or worse you can make a simple mount like this. So I actually mount the ECU in between the two pieces, which it looks like it has some real estate. The only thing I am a little concerned about is the power connections. Nope, they'll be fine. They'll be totally fine. I should have enough real estate there. Matter of fact, let's just try it out now. These Sherlock connectors are pretty slick. You know what, I might put a little spacer between the two pieces, but that's just to keep it from touching off. But other than that, I am super happy with my purchase. I think it saved a couple $100, so sick. All right, fitting this thing in place, it wouldn't fit. And I'm like, man, I'm gonna eat those words. I should have spent more money on a different one. Until I jumped underneath here and I looked down and I saw that this, and this one over here, you can see these three are not factory because there's no way that's a factory weld. And up there, same deal. You guys can see what I'm talking about there. There's no way. I mean, that's all non-OEM. However, this stud, sorry about the shadows, but this stud down here, you can see it, the one right there, that tiny one right there, and that one down there are factory. And this is drilled for those holes. So I'm gonna go back in and I'm gonna cut these three mounts out. The Pro EFI was mounted to, and I will have a good place to mount the Nexus. Don't forget, this thing gave me a nasty scar on my face. I was bleeding out like crazy, but luckily I was wearing glasses. Skated up my eyeball and tore my forehead wide open, baby. But we're good to go. I'll get that out the way. What did they even weld in there? It's hot. But all the three studs are cut out. I didn't want to get up there. So the way I make YouTube videos, I literally make the video as I work on the car. So, and I've said this before, if it's a 15 to 20 minute video, I'll make that video over the course of 3 to 4 hours of working on a car. And by the time I'm done, the video is ready, I can upload it and I'm done. But one thing that I feel like YouTubers don't do enough is show when they screw up, when they're just morons like me and they jack something up. They just delete the clip and pretend like they never screwed up. I hate that. It's so fake. It's not real. Nobody's perfect, especially not me. So let me show you what I jacked up royally in the install. Remember the clip where I was like, oh, one more bolt, too big of a pain in the butt. Well, you need to take this out. You have to uninstall this because with that installed, the ECU master panel can't fit. You have to completely unbolt it, and then you can bolt the base up in the factory location with the studs at the bottom. And then once the base is bolted, you can put the cover over the top. So, there you go. Which I would have known if I just took 3 seconds and read the description of the product. Sheesh. All right, got my line to where I want to actually mount this sucker. Take my punch. I already pre-marked. You can probably barely see the lines, the little dots I put in here. There's one up there. Man, I'm holding it like a kid with a crayon for the first time. Get these out. I'll acetone off the Sharpie line, and then I will have an ECU that's mounted. So why do I want to mount this first? Because I run the harness, the unterminated harness, into the engine bay, and I want to have the ECU in a fixed location so I know that all my wiring will reach it properly and I won't have any issues getting to the ECU. This is a time lapse. I used to be able to use music from the app called Splice, but then they hit me with copyright infringement. Copyright infringement, copyright infringement. That was Jasmine singing backup vocals for me, yeah, yeah, yeah. There it is, all right, mounted up. It's just 4 M6 10 mil locking nuts on the back. That's all there is to it. And I should have plenty of real estate to curve the harness out and away from those brackets, obviously. Internal map sensor, antenna can stick straight out, and your tuning plug down there. That'll be nice. Now this is how I set up the universal harness, the unterminated harness. This is just a connecting rod clamp that I have next to a vise on the side of the bench. And then I can run the cords or the wiring all the way out to the end of the bench. I then take every single piece that I'm going to have and I label it as such. I know this is probably archaic. This is all extra stuff I don't need. And there's probably a lot of professional wiring gurus that think this is dumb. I don't care. It works for me. And what I'll do is I'll fish these through the firewall. These will stay dumped in the engine bay. And then I'll run each one of these individual looms to their final resting place, cut them back to length where they need to fit. And then I'll go back, I'll terminate all the connections, I'll loom it all up, and I'll have a complete harness ready to go. That process is painstaking, and if I made a video out of it the entire time, it would take me hours and hours and hours just to film the stuff that goes into it. That being said, if you have the tools, you have the time, you're looking at a few weekends, 2 weekends of work maybe, to get this harness converted into a good harness for your engine. And with extensions too, like I'll have breakouts for extra AVIs, extra DPOs, blah, blah, blah. That's all I got for today. Charlie is passed out, looking like a potato with legs. Thank you guys for watching.
This is the outro song. Oh, it's my turn?
Come on, man. It's teamwork.